Welcome to the Feeling Lighter podcast. I'm Coach Tyler here today with Dr. Lisa, and I'm excited because this is a solo episode, meaning just you and I today. We're going to talk about something really important, which is how it's so hard to receive, right? It's so hard to receive kindness from others, and how do people start letting more love into their life? Yeah. So, Lisa, why is it so hard to receive?
I think that we are conditioned to believe we are not worthy. Yeah, I feel like we were taught, especially as women, I know this is really across the board, but I think especially as women, we are seen as self-sacrificing beings that give to other people. And then, for the general population, I think it's this idea that you are stingy, or you are selfish, or you are, proud if you focus on your own needs, or you focus on allowing, love in or compliments or things like that. And so, I don't know, I think modesty is like the praised, attribute. Right. So if we're modest, then, oh, no, thank you. Not, taking up space is like, how dare he, how dare she? So I don't know. I think we're trained from a very young age to not receive very well. We are taught to give. We're taught to share. That's an early lesson. Yeah. But we're not taught to set our boundaries and take up our space and take care of ourselves and accept love and compliments and praise from other people. So we talk about this because I think the whole last quarter we were recording, you would say something like, the lovely Dr. Lisa, and I'd be like, like a weirdo, because I just hearing lovely, and I do think I'm lovely, but it's weird. It's like, I don't know. You feel a way about accepting that and being open to that. So yeah, it's a thing. It's problematic too. So
yeah, it's funny that we're having this conversation today. Literally yesterday, I had a long work day, and I came home, and my wife was vacuuming, and the house was super clean. And normally, I'm the one who vacuums at night, right? Mm-hmm. And I had this moment of why is she doing that? I feel so bad, right? But many years ago, a therapist taught me something really powerful, and it was when you're having a conversation with your wife after you come home late, and you say, "I'm so sorry, I'm coming home late." That's you putting yourself on a pedestal. If I come home and I say, "Thank you so much for taking care of everything so that I could go do that extra work." Yeah. Now it's expressing gratitude towards another person. Mm-hmm. And yet I walked in that house last night and was like, "Oh, you're doing my job. I'm so sorry that you did this." And I felt so much like lack of being able to receive that gift that she was giving me. And when we started this episode, right before we started this episode, I thought to myself, why is that? Why is that we just have such a hard time receiving from other people? And I think at the core of it, there's a phrase that I've had pop up throughout my own growth journey, which is I'm not enough, right? Yeah. And I think that if we feel like we're not enough, if we feel like we're not worthy of receiving acts of service, words of affirmation, gestures of kindness, then we won't receive it. No. We just won't. We'll say things that we think are putting ourselves off the pedestal when really it's putting ourselves on the pedestal. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And really the secret to letting more love in is thank you. Thank you. It's gratitude. It's expressing gratitude towards the other people who are offering you that.
I think this reminds me of my upbringing. We've talked about it before. I had young parents and not a lot of supervision. And I was very type A, and I was very much parentified, and I sought comfort in structure. It's how I got deeply invested in diet culture. It's how I joined JROTC in high school and almost went to the Army. It's how I found religion. And never a shot to religion, absolutely helped me in this particular time in my life because my home was so chaotic. And so for me, growing up in a religious setting by choice, the general theme, that is where I got my lessons in life. This is how you live. And we talk a lot about being a joyful or cheerful giver, but never anything about receiving. And so when you are extremely religious and devout, as I was growing up as a child, the thought process was you give, you give, you give, you pour, you pour, you pour, and God will sustain you, right? And there's like truth to that, but God also gave us
Until you
the
burn out and fall apart.
until you fall apart, yeah.
Yeah.
But God also gave us the ability to love on and protect and take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
And you give that up sometimes in these settings, and it carries over into every aspect of your lives. And for me, it was how I approached religion, church. I was giving, volunteering, whatever they needed, I was there. If it was staying up late, getting up early, I'm going to give because this is to God, this is to my church, my community. And then you look up and you're like, I haven't done anything for myself. I've neglected myself. But the thought of doing more for yourself it's stingy, and you definitely in the church setting, you're not doing this for praise. No one's going to call you up and give you some award for showing up every Sunday or doing whatever it is. So it was definitely a conditioning, and it carried over into my romantic life in seeing myself as the giver, the nurturer, the woman. You give, and you're long suffering. So I hate to even say this because I know, people have their own thoughts about it, but in the religious setting, when we talk about relationships, specifically male-female relationships and marriage, there is a lot of accountability given to women to maintain the status quo and remain open-hearted, to forgive and forget and move on. And you can have a partner who is completely misbehaving, and you're expected to suffer through that and just push. And the thought is you don't deserve any better than this. They don't say that, right? That would be awful, right? But the thought is people are human. People make mistakes. You just push through. Be like Jesus. Figure out how to be like Jesus and forgive, forget, and move on. And that was, it was so damaging to my self-esteem and my ability to prioritize my own needs. And so receiving love was like, you take the bare minimum because, this is your job. You're the long-suffering wife, woman, and you put up with whatever is thrown at you because that is your battle, your work, your cross to bear in love and marriage, especially in that sort of strict religious setting. So, learning how to receive love, it's a journey I'm still on, like, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, it's a lifelong journey.
Yeah, it is. But it's, like, even now, I think we all know I'm in the middle of a divorce and I'm dating, which has been really fun. But even now, engaging with new people, there's a level of insecurity or discomfort around, like, do they really like me? You know what I mean? Like me? Like,
yeah.
and receiving compliments. I want them and they feel good because I love words of affirmation. But it's like, I find myself constantly questioning the validity of them and the sincerity of them. Or he's probably just saying that because he wants to sleep with me. It's just, it takes a long time, like undoing that, untangling that, like, idea of worthiness to receive love. It's a lot. And like I said, I'm still very much in that journey, coming out of a dysfunctional marriage, for so long. So
sometimes I think when people ask themselves, do they really like me? What we're really asking is, do I really like me? Right? Do I really love and value myself? It's again, it's a little serendipitous. I was having a conversation with my wife the other day, and she was having one of those weeks where she was struggling to appreciate specifically her body. And I said to her, is there ever a moment you walk past a mirror and look at yourself and go, yeah, girl, you got it? And she's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, that's like my daily occurrence, right?
I love that for you, Tyler. I love that for you.
Well, and that's part of it's because I'm really proud of myself from where I've come. But, one thing I think about with this one is I've been very lucky to have a large spectrum of the experiences that we're talking about. Yeah. When I was a kid, I was deeply insecure. I had a lot of fear, and I didn't feel worthy. But I remember thinking to myself, like, fake it till you make it. So just go out there and just start to develop that sense of self that is prideful maybe, or at least, you pretend like you like yourself.
Right.
And I did that for long enough that it became my reality. But I'll be honest, it was a bit more, I hesitate to use this word, but a bit more narcissistic than authentic.
Right.
Right. And for a long time, I lived like that. And I was told by a lot of people that you're selfish, you're selfish, you're selfish. And there were aspects of the way I was living that were selfish, for sure. And then my whole life started to crumble many, many years ago, and I wasn't sure if I was going to stay in the relationship. My wife wasn't sure she wanted to be in this relationship anymore. Look at this guy. He's just always, egocentric and all these different things. And as things started to crumble, I started to change, but it was, again, out of insecurity. It was, let me show up now because I feel so bad about who I was and how I was showing up. But then I found myself being like, I'm just sacrificing everything, right? I'll always watch myself say yes to the things that my family needs and she needs and stuff. And I'm watching myself have a harder and harder time saying yes to what I need. And then, like the pendulum, I think of it always swinging from side to side, right? And it swung all the way over there. And it got to this point where I was like, I cannot do this anymore. And it started to swing back to the center again. But that experience from one side to the other was really helpful, because I at least to some degree, know what it feels like to feel like you have to say yes to everything around you, probably out of fear for most people. And I also know what it feels like to say yes to yourself, both from a really unhealthy place and now more so than ever from a really healthy and positive place. And my wish for everyone listening to this is, your life's going to swing you from both sides of the spectrum back and forth, but especially for the women out there who, like you've said, have been just so conditioned to give. Serving others does not mean neglecting yourself. Serving others does not mean neglecting yourself.
And the beauty of that is taking better care of yourself enables you to serve others better.
And that's exactly what we try to teach people with WeShape, especially throughout the challenges. We have multiple levels now of the challenge where we go deeper in the psychology for each level. And one of the things we focus on is, am I serving out of obligation, or am I serving because it's what I really want to do? Is my cup empty and I'm pouring it out anyways, or am I overflowing and everyone around me is benefiting from it? And it's so easy to build an identity around obligatory service, right? I'm doing this for my family, for my partner, for my community, for my religion, for my whatever. And then at the end of the day, you are wiped and you never took care of yourself. But it's like they say on the airplane, Lisa. You got to let that oxygen mask come down. And if you don't put yours on first, you can't help anybody else. But it's so hard to do, right?
It's so hard to do that. And I think the step beyond that is, so we can get to a place where we care a bit more about ourselves, or we take, even if, like you said, even if it's obligatory, I'm going to take care of myself because I know I have to. I know I have to be able to show up. I'm going to go to bed tonight because I know I got to get up and do this thing in the morning for these people, but the receiving of that love and care and kindness and consideration from other people, that is so difficult. I used to have conversations with my friend Nedra around receiving compliments, and I didn't even know I was doing it until she called it out one time. It could have been something as simple as like, "Oh, I love your dress," or "Oh, your hair looks so good," and my the thing I would say would be like, "Oh no," or "This whole thing," or "It's a mess. I have to go get it done," or "Do you see it's messed up over here?" It's like point out the imperfection, downplay the thing that they're complimenting, because how dare you just receive it. And she said something like, you can just say thank you.
I love that. That's going to be the big message today. You can just say thank you.
You can just say thank you. And so that's what I want people to take away from this episode is like, you deserve the kindness and love and respect and admiration from the people around you, because I'm sure you're doing something extraordinary in your life, whether you recognize it or not. And you can just say thank you. You don't have to deflect. You don't have to push the compliment back to them. And that was the other thing, like, "Oh, your dress is so pretty." "Oh, no, but your dress is so pretty." It's like, just sit in the compliment. It's going to be wildly uncomfortable when you do it, I promise you, but it's going to feel good eventually.
Yeah.
And I've developed that muscle. I can accept a compliment a little bit better, but that it took so long to just like sit with that and say, okay, thank you. Or, my hair does look really good today. Or, yeah, I really love this dress. Or, something like that versus this idea that, like, oh, no, it can't be. No, you look better. No, not, take the attention off me. But I also think it goes back to this idea of, like, insecurities and not necessarily wanting the attention to be on ourselves and not feeling a lot of love and compassion for ourselves in the first place.
Yeah.
So it's quite the rabbit hole when you go down
Totally.
it. But I do appreciate the growth and the shifts and really just the awareness. So if for nothing else, if this makes you more aware
Yeah.
of the fact.
Become aware of the compliments you're pushing away, right?
Every day.
Because I think of it kind of like you're doing this dance when we have conversations with everyone else around us. And I'm a words of affirmation kind of guy, so I tend to like to give that to others. And when I give a compliment that I really feel like is coming from my heart, and someone says, oh, it's just this, that's like, okay, kindness
Slap in the
mixed
face.
with like kind of self-deprecation.
Yeah, it is.
And it's really a missed opportunity for you to allow others to lift you up and show you who you really are.
Yeah.
And for anybody who struggles to take a compliment, I want you to hear this. You can't receive what you don't believe,
Oof.
right? You can't receive what you don't believe.
I like
But we
that.
can start to try by simply saying thank you.
Thank you.
And then over time, if we say thank you instead of, oh, it's just this or it's that, these excuses, we begin to believe what the other people are offering to us. And if we get enough compliments and we say enough thank yous over time, I think it's going to help fortify who we are. I think people don't realize that we talk about self-love a lot.
Yeah.
But we don't learn to love ourselves in isolation.
No.
We learn to love ourselves through the interactions with others in our community.
Community.
And when we don't let compliments in, we are just putting a big ass wall up. And you will never, ever, ever be able to utilize the gift that they're giving you of building your self-worth and your self-confidence, and you're changing your perspective of yourself. So you have to, like you said, build the awareness to say, okay, pause, that person just gave me a compliment.
Yeah.
I'm feeling uncomfortable, and my natural reaction is to deflect the compliment,
Yeah.
right? Because I don't want to be taking up too much space, right?
Yeah.
And instead, just say thank you.
Thank you.
Just say thank you. Let that love in, and then maybe later in the day, think about what that person said to you. There's another level to step to this, right? Is think about what they said, and just feel how good it feels.
Yeah.
Don't let the thoughts get in the way around, well, that's because of this, and that's because of that, and that's because of this, and that's because of that. Just feel how it makes you feel if you really understood that this person believed that, right? Most of the time, people aren't out there just lying to everybody around them.
No.
They believe that about you, especially if it was said in a heartfelt way.
Yeah. For sure. And I think the step beyond that too is, you get to a point where you can accept the compliment, and ideally that grows into being able to accept love and affection from people, and not feeling so defensive and questioning the validity of it, and knowing like, okay, I'm worthy of this kindness and this love, but you have to find the space to receive love from yourself. And that can be a really big hurdle for people. I think that's kind of the journey most of us spend our lives on. And I found an effective way to start is to, do that inner child work and see yourself as, literally get a picture of yourself like somewhere between like 3 and 7, and like look at that tiny version of you and think about all the ways you can pour love into that little person. That little person is still there inside of you. And that is usually a good launching pad for people to express more self-love and self-compassion, because we don't mistreat children, hopefully, right? We don't typically mistreat children. We treat them very well. And we, the same way we treat our own children. Like, we want them to really love themselves and really know how valuable they are. So sometimes it's pretending that you are this child again and starting to pour into yourself from that point. And then you can maybe be an adult who looks at themselves in the mirror and is able to say things to that adult like, you're beautiful, you're smart, you're so strong, you're doing such a great job. But it takes practice and it takes effort, and sometimes beginning with that that child, that little version of yourself can be a good way to go there.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of doing some inner child work as well, and I think that brings up a really useful tool that people can use when they're struggling to receive compliments. So if you're struggling to receive love and kindness and gestures and things like that, we talked about awareness being the starting point. So just like, hey, I'm receiving something kind from someone else, and if you can't receive it, and maybe the best thing is to say thank you, but if you want to unpack it later, that's what's really fun. I love the process of inquiry, which is just asking, why was I so uncomfortable when that person complimented how I looked or how I showed up or what I did? And pause for a second and let the answer arise, and then say, well, why did that happen? If we do this a couple times, we might find an experience in our past, a way we were raised, some memories that we have, some traumatic memories that we have maybe, that are driving our inability to allow that love into our lives. And if we can utilize that awareness around the feeling of discomfort and then unpack it, find some nugget from our past that's preventing us from being able to receive, and then offer that part of yourself love and kindness. Because usually it's something like, your mom's like, quit being selfish and doing all this stuff, blah, 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 right? And then you just took that and internalized it, and you made it so that if I do anything for myself, then I'm a bad person and no one will love me, right? Woo. But the reality is, it was just a moment in time when someone said something to you that they probably didn't actually mean. They were just frustrated. And then we made it our entire story. And so it's so important that we take the time to understand our story, rewrite our story, and allow us to then move forward with a new ability to accept those compliments that we couldn't before, right? We think we're acting out of our consciousness. Yeah. And most of the time we're acting out of our conditioning.
100%.
And if we can identify why that conditioning exists, then we can bring it back to being more conscious. And that's when we can start saying thank you, and that's when we can start really meaning thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I highly suggest doing this work with a certified mental health therapist.
Yes, can be very helpful for sure.
Mental health, because it is deep inner work, and you're right. You identify those moments, those traumatic moments where things happened or things were said and didn't even seem like trauma, right? Like it's like something like that.
Something little.
Wouldn't feel like trauma necessarily, but trauma is created in our lives in so many different ways, and it doesn't have to be, a house fire or death. It can literally just be a comment that we internalize. And so being able to dissect that and dig deep into the whys to sort of undo that is really deep work, and it's really important work. And I don't think a lot of us do it. We just kind of deal with the status quo of, I'm nobody, I'm not that important, I'm not, and that energy is, I feel like that energy is almost, if you believe in any higher power, God, the universe, whatever, I think that energy is almost disrespectful to your creator, because you're so amazing. You know what I mean? Like, you were created for a purpose, like there's something inside of you that is important enough to still be here and to still exist. And so why be so mean to yourself and assume or accept, I don't have anything to offer. I don't deserve this. I don't believe that I should have nice things or be treated well or, hair compliments. It's very disrespectful to whomever's image we were created in, because we are important and we are valuable. And so we should start seeing ourselves as that, without fear of being too selfish, too proud, too high up on our horses, because I would say the vast majority of us aren't comfortable there either. So that pendulum, like you said, it'll swing. But we have to do what is within our power to cultivate more self-love, and then we are able to receive love from other people. Because I don't believe that we are effectively receiving love from others when we don't love or care for ourselves. Sure. I just don't think we can.
You can't
we can't identify it.
You can't offer yourself, right?
Yeah,
I think what's really interesting that you've kind of loosely touched on, and something we talk about a lot here, is this erroneous belief that we have to do something, be something, offer something in order to be worthy of love and kindness.
Yeah.
And I think maybe one of the most important things when it comes to being able to receive and accept and let love into your life is to work on getting rid of that belief that you have to do something to be worthy.
Yeah.
Because if we always have to do something to be worthy, there's always something that can prevent us from feeling worthy.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
But if we feel intrinsically whole and we feel intrinsically worthy, nothing can shake that.
No.
Right? I had to learn this the hard way in my own life where like I shared with you, I had this fear and insecurity, and to me what it felt like was this gaping hole inside my heart, this open hole, and it was just like fill it with everything I can possibly think of to see if I can make that pain go away. And there's a point in that journey where I realized, wait a second, this hole never gets filled, especially not by things outside of myself.
Yeah.
The only way to fill this hole is to recognize that I'm already whole. And it was just this really weird thing that they have the same, it's a homonym, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so those two things are really challenging to hold in the same space as each other. But if you can let go of the need to have external things validate your sense of worth,
Yeah.
and you can just validate your own sense of worth yourself by just recognizing I don't have to do anything to be worthy of love and kindness and feel whole, then everything can change for you. Like everything can change for you.
That's the baseline. Like that's what I like to tell people. Like, your cool workouts, your degrees, your education, your certificates, all the cool things you do in the world, that's our icing. But we're the cake, right? Like we're the part that's important. Like as whole humans, we are enough just as we are, and we deserve kindness, we deserve compassion, we deserve respect. We don't deserve to be mistreated just off of that. And then you add in all the cool stuff and all the cool things you do and how wonderful you are and how you show up in these different places, and it's like even better, icing, confetti, cherry on top, whatever it is, but your baseline is enough. And I say that consistently to clients, and I remind myself, but sometimes, our actions don't align with what we say to ourselves. And so it's really important to reevaluate that from time to time and kind of get yourself back in check.
Yeah.
Like if I say that I'm worthy of these things, if I believe in my innate value and inherent worth, then why aren't these behaviors matching? Why am I treating myself or accepting treatment? That's a big one. Accepting treatment from people that doesn't align, with that.
Yeah.
And I would say that's the harder step, is identifying when you're allowing people to mistreat you and to not show you the love and kindness and respect that you deserve. And it's like, then how do we address that? Like that, it gets, a little touchy. I'm a firm believer in I can't force you to love me the way I need to be loved. I can experience your love and decide if it resonates with me and it feels good or if it doesn't. And then my choice is to either stick it out and stay with this or to move on. Because I can't make you do what I feel, helps me feel whole and loved. But I don't think we always have that confidence to say that or have that conversation.
It's scary.
I think we're very much used to just accepting what is. This is how they treat me. I'll just go along with it. But when you come into the awareness of your value, then you have to be able to walk away from situations where you're not getting what you deserve. So
I think what's so challenging is that I don't think enough people think about being on their deathbed and thinking of the life they chose to live where they made themselves small, where they didn't value themselves. And I promise that if that's you and you're in that position, you're going to look back and say, God, I wish I would have lived more fully. I wish I would have lived more truthfully. I wish I would have lived more authentically. And the life that you want is behind that flaming wall that looks like it's going to burn you bad. And sometimes it does.
Yeah.
And sometimes it does. The reality of growth work is that it's not always uncomfortable. But I like to think about it as like a black hole, right? At first, you're kind of hovering around the outside, and there's not enough gravity to pull you in. And you take some baby steps forward, and it starts pulling you in faster and faster. And at some point, you're on this journey. You're like, ain't no turning back, right? Ain't no turning back. I'm going to continuously try to show up and be my most authentic self. And as time goes on, the pains of recognition around how you have hurt yourself
Yeah.
start to dissipate, and you just start to really appreciate who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And something I've found in my own life is the more I learn to love and appreciate myself, the more I can love and appreciate everybody, even the people that maybe I don't agree with or don't necessarily like. I'm like, they're just another human being. If I went through all the same experiences as them, I would be them too, right? And you just have so much more compassion. You have so much more empathy for people in whatever position they're in, and you're just filled with so much more love, and it starts with yourself. And so I want to touch on something before we get off this pod today, because we've talked about selfishness and taking up space.
Yeah.
And so a lot of this is clearly, I hope by now you're realizing this is an inside job, right? We're not going to like go out in the world and change other people so that we can receive love and kindness. We got to change the way we feel about ourselves. And that means we have to take action on some things. So the first thing we've given you to take action on is build the awareness of when someone is doing something kind for you, saying something kind to you. Just build that awareness.
Yeah.
Just when it happens, just, wow, this is somebody trying to offer me love and kindness.
Yeah.
The second step is say thank you.
Say thank
Even
you.
if you don't believe it, just say thank you instead of, oh, it's blah, 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 right? Actually accept that offering from them.
Yeah, receive.
If you need to, do some inquiry work around why that might not have been the case. Go work with a professional, do inner child work. Things like that can be really helpful. But ultimately, you have to be comfortable taking up space.
You do.
Doing things for yourself doesn't mean you're selfish.
Mm-mm.
Selfish is only thinking about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Selfish is not thinking about others.
Yep.
I know this. I've been in that position where I woke up and I thought to myself, what's Tyler need today? And nobody else even crossed my mind.
Right.
And that will create a miserable life.
Yeah.
And I've also done it where I said, what does everybody else need today? And didn't think about myself. And that will create a miserable life. So we have to have a sense of balance where we're able to wake up and say, what are the needs of the day and the people around me that I care about the most? What are my needs today? And what do I need the most? And how do I create balance in my life so that I can do both of those things?
Yeah.
So for the people who are listening still, who haven't, turned off the podcast because they're like, I don't want to hear any of this spiritual mumbo jumbo. How have you done this in your own life? Offered yourself the permission to be a little more selfish, to take up a little bit more space? Because I know, again, as a woman in this world, meekness is rewarded, and it's the opposite of taking up space, right? How have you done that?
I've chosen to be a rebel in many areas of my life. I've chosen to speak up and to speak loud. I've chosen to stop letting my life just happen and make some shifts and changes for myself. I decided to leave a marriage after 17 years. I decided to, start a business with a 2-year-old and a 1-month-old. I decided to take chances on myself and to believe in myself. I decided to lean into my areas of expertise and call myself an expert in certain areas, whereas I never would have done that before.
You don't even like it when I call you Dr. Lisa.
I know, right?
I'm like, girl, you went to school for that DR right there. Let's use it.
And I'm so proud of it. And
You should be.
I really try to lean into that, but it's so challenging sometimes, especially as a woman, to appear. And this dating scene, I will say, the dating scene is teaching me some things and also like shocking me in some ways, because I've seen profiles like of guys, that may be interested in me, and they'll say things like, as a man, I don't care about your education or what you do or da-da-da. And I'm like, you don't? Like, why don't you? Like, why is that not a plus for you? But it's like, I care about you being a submissive woman. And it's like, oh, okay. So it's about values, right? So recognizing your values and understanding that everybody's not going to get it. Everybody is not going to be in alignment with who you are.
Be
and what
okay
you
with
want,
people not
but
agreeing with you.
Be okay with that, because guess what? That's just not your people. And there's nothing wrong with that. And you don't have to fight with them or argue with them, but, staying true to yourself. So it's been about getting to know who I really am, getting to know what I really want, taking the time to do that, and not feeling bad that meant leaving people behind, or that meant changing and altering the course of my life. As a mother, making the decision to leave a marriage, and you have 3 children, and they're like, what are you doing? You're uprooting our whole lives. I am, because at the end of the day, it's going to be the healthiest thing for me. And what I do know about being the primary parent is that if I'm okay, y'all are going to be okay. But if I'm not okay, y'all are going to suffer more.
Yeah.
And so this transition might be really, really crazy and hard and scary, but ultimately everyone's going to benefit. So that was a direct example of how putting my own needs first, which looks super selfish to people who believe in the sanctity of marriage and you just don't leave. Yeah. I was not in a scenario, to be very clear, where my ex was wanting the divorce. Like, to be very clear, we were on different sides of the spectrum here. But
I don't think you were in a scenario where your ex was wanting to work on the dynamics either.
Well, that's a whole nother podcast, but absolutely.
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's just be honest. Yeah, we'll do that one next. But that is the reality. But again, maintaining the status quo and staying, because being in the church setting, it was like, you just suck it up. How do your grandmothers and great-grandmothers stay married for so long and have these, rocking chair on the porch moments? Well, I would argue that they didn't have any other options because, women couldn't have bank accounts until the 1970s. So there's that. But it's this idea that you just stay, you just stick it out, you're uncomfortable, you self-sacrifice to maintain a two-parent home. And when you grow up in a single-parent home, you think the two-parent home is the holy grail, and you just stay. And so making that decision and sort of being the rebel and saying, I'm obviously many women have, sought divorce. I'm not the first, won't be the last. But being able to do that and just stand firm in it and feel confident about it and feel strong about it and no wavering, that has been a huge part in the process of loving myself and caring for myself and putting my own needs before everyone. Because, would my kids benefit from having a second person in the home? Sorta. not him necessarily, but sorta. But they benefit more from having a healthy, whole, happy mom who is not sad and depressed and crying in the closet every night and, dysregulated all the time. So this works out so much better, even though it's a hard step. And then it opens me up to understanding, like, what I was receiving wasn't love I don't think it was love at all, but it definitely wasn't love that resonated with me. And so now I get to seek that for myself and give that to myself. And so it's very powerful.
I love that. And you said something really huge there that I want to touch on. Okay. When we have a belief that something like, oh, you're supposed to stay in a marriage and just tough it out. When we question that belief, what we find is, oh, well, I believe that because my mom believed that. And my mom believed that because her mom believed that. Right. And her mom believed that because her mom believed that. And ultimately, what we realize is this is just something we decided to do as a society because it served the culture at the time. Yeah. And now we're in a much different place and a much different culture. And if you stick with something that is toxic, is negative, isn't serving you, then all you're teaching your future generations is you suffer. You suffer. You suffer. You stay in the suffering. You don't have self-worth. Yeah. You don't value yourself. You don't show up for yourself. And to me, that lesson is one of the most detrimental lessons that we can teach our children, our grandchildren, etc. I think we need to recognize that in order to change the way that people are living in this world, we have to question those beliefs. Yeah. And we have to stand up and we have to say, okay, how do I show up for me and what I need from a very heart-centered, healthy, or like authentic place? Yeah. And start showing up for those things. And really start showing up for those things so that the future generations go, oh, like, how do I show up in a more meaningful way? And this isn't about making your bank account bigger. This isn't about hustle culture and these things like that you can fall prey to that and think you're on that path, right? This is about, how am I showing up for me? How am I doing something meaningful in my life? It doesn't have to be everything, but just something that you're doing that really impacts people in a positive way. Yeah. And how am I showing this to others around me so I give them permission to stand up for themselves as well? Absolutely. And I think if there's any message I want people to take away today, it's like, carve out a little space for yourself. And it might seem silly, but like, just set a timer for 10 minutes and tell everybody in your household, I'm carving out some space for myself. Yeah. Do a workout, do a meditation, just sit there and be still. Silence, just sit there and be still. Ask yourself the questions we've been talking about. Go for a walk, like do something you enjoy, and try to do that consistently enough that it becomes a part of who you are. I give myself a little bit of time each day to take care of myself. Yeah. And as you feel better about that and it feels less uncomfortable, becomes more habitual, that's the domino that tips over that makes consistently showing up for yourself easier and easier and easier over time.
Yeah.
But it takes that initial start where you have to say, boundary, boundary, boundary. I'm going to take 10 minutes, just
That's
10
for
minutes
me. Yeah.
for myself every single day. If you do that for 2 months, guess what? You're going to want to take 20, and then you're going to want to take 30.
You're going to be
and
taking
you deserve any of
weekends
that.
and weeks, vacations,
Yeah.
and you're going to be sprinkling that into your every single day all the time.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be the norm, the thing to do. And the people watching you, especially your children, your offspring, if you have any, or the children around you, they are going to understand the significance of that and probably emulate it. And then, like you said, that's the domino. That's the thing that tips it. So
I got one last thing for people before they go.
Okay.
So we gave them a magic phrase when people are complimenting them. Thank you. And then
And
what
a smile.
about when someone expresses gratitude towards you? There's another magic phrase when someone says, well, thank you so much for doing this and doing this and doing this. You can say, you're welcome. You're welcome. All right. That's another magic phrase, because so many of us will do the same thing when
Yeah.
somebody's expressing gratitude towards us. We'll say, no, I don't deserve that
Yeah.
gratitude, and I'll sweep it to the side just like everything else. But if you just look at somebody in the eyes and say, you're welcome, and you did something kind, that's also fortifying your self-worth.
Absolutely.
So don't forget, thank you, you're welcome. Build that awareness, do that inquiry, and start letting some love into your life, yeah?
Yeah, love yourself and accept that love from others every single day. It's a good practice. Just keep at it, even when it's weird.
Yeah, and don't be afraid. Take up some space, all right?
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.